Alright, as you can tell, it's a beautiful Alabama day. This is the reason why I haven't been fishing. The rivers are flooded out right now, but they're on their way down. And this is just a decent little passing rainstorm. So I'm fixing to make up a bunch of particle mix. This will last me, this amount I'm going to make is going to last me about a month, most likely. A month, 6 weeks if I'm not fishing that much. And all it's going to be is corn, bird seed. I'm probably going to make a little of my stick mix, even though I have plenty of it saved up right now. I also like to mix it in with my particle mix and use it to almost glaze my baits and give them that extra little boost of attraction for a ton of hemp seed. But when you mix it in that fashion, it's not going to allow the fish to focus on it because it's just not quite enough of it. So what I'm going to use is going to be this turkey fryer, peanut boiler. Where I live, we call them peanut boilers and fish fryers because we do that a lot more than we do frying turkeys. Fry about 1 turkey a year, you're going to boil peanuts. I think it's a lot more than that when you live in Alabama. I've got cooler down here at my feet. It's no telling how old it is. It's only used for fish bait. I'm going to soak my corn for 24 hours. I'm going to heat up some water to do that. It's going to help pump that corn up even more before I boil it. And I'm going to boil it actually tomorrow. It'll boil for about an hour. And then I'll add in the bird seed when the bird seed's done and the corn's done. So I'm going to get in some of the corn. Now this is corn from last year. I brought this bag of corn in October roughly. So it's going to be a little eat up weevils. It's going to be real dusty. So because of that I'm going to need to wash it or it would definitely sour overnight. Some people say that's good, some people say it's bad. I don't personally care for it. I don't like to smell it. So I like my corn to stay nice and fresh. So first things first, I'm going to get corn in this cooler. I'm going to get some water in the pot, keep the pot turned on, and we'll get this open. This is the main part of my particle mix. It's just good old-fashioned field corn. You can get this pretty much anywhere if you live in the States. If you live in a place like I do. You get it at the local co-op. You can get it at pretty much any gas station during deer season. You get pretty much any grocery store during deer season. I think Walmart sells it pretty much year-round now in their in the outdoor section. At least they do in my part of the world. I got this actually from the co-op. Here in town, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to wash it. I've got just a bucket of water here because I didn't feel like running the water hose all the way over here. This will be more than enough to get it washed. I'm just going to wash it till it runs clean. It's kind of like washing rice if you do that. Get all the dust off of it, let it run clean, and then I'm going to get hot water going. Got fire. Corn's washed. Water's on the boil. Steaming. It's not quite there yet. Doesn't need to necessarily be boiling. This is just going to help speed the soaking process up and make the cooking even faster. If you don't do the soaking process and you don't use a pressure cooker, it's going to take about 3 hours to boil your corn. Now, if you don't know why you're boiling the corn, we do it because number one, you just feed out dry field corn. It's not very attractive to the fish, but they will eat it. And when they eat it, it will kill them. As the corn begins to swell up, it will bust the fish's guts after they eat it, and they're going to float down the river dead. That's not good for anybody. The other thing it does is it helps to extract the natural sweetness from the corn, which is going to make it more attractive, and it's going to puff the corn up. The corn will get 2.5 to 3 times larger per piece after it's been soaked and boiled, and you get a slightly better size increase whenever you soak it before you boil it. Like I said, you do not have to do the soaking process, but I like to. It just makes things go a lot quicker on the next day when you begin boiling it. If you don't have one of these big pots like this or fish cooker outside, you can do this in a smaller batch in the kitchen. Just don't use your wife or girlfriend's or mother's favorite sauce pot, and you'll be all right. You can just get a beater one from Walmart and do small batches at a time. I like to use the cooler in this process. I'll use it again once the corn is done boiling, because it's going to help hold in heat, and it's going to keep the corn cooking after it's been cooked, and it's going to keep this water warmer longer. It will be completely cold tomorrow whenever I go to put it back in this pot, but it's going to make this soaking process even more efficient. It's going to puff the corn just that little bit more. Now, tomorrow I'm going to be adding in bird seed into this. I do not soak my bird seed. You don't have to. It's much smaller kernels and it cooks much faster. When you're looking for bird seed, you want to find something with as many different particles as you can, but with as few sunflower seeds as you can. The carp don't really seem to like the sunflower seeds. Either that or they just really, really like them, and they will focus on them like they sometimes do with hemp seed, and to the point where you no longer really catch them. If you have whole hemp seeds, that would be good. Other good things to add, if you can find it, is to use pigeon conditioner instead of bird seed. For some reason, I just can't get it down here. I've tried to order it at Tractor Supply, I've tried to order it online, and the shipping is just not worth it for me when I have the results I already have with bird seed. The local co-op can't get a hold of it for me, so I just go without. One of the big things that's in pigeon conditioner that is a big bonus is maple peas. You can get maple peas even if you're just getting maple peas by themselves. Add them into your particle mix and it's going to help boost it up. Now, living where I live, I have huge access to peanuts. I have peanuts running out of my ears most times, especially in the fall. I use those instead of tiger nuts. I think they're better for the fish. I don't necessarily know that fish like them as good or better. I feel like they work just as good in my limited use of tiger nuts, but they're much more readily available for me, and they have more fat and more calories to them than the tiger nuts do, so they're better for the fish in the long run. Now, after I boil this, I'm going to save the water. If I was going to do boilies today, I cooked my boilies in the water left over from cooking corn. When I do my hemp seed tomorrow, I'm also going to cook it in this leftover liquid. That's just going to give it an extra boost of flavor, because I'm going to save all of that liquid by soaking it up with Chum and Get It. Now, what is Chum and Get It? Chum and Get It used to be a dog food. It's now a fish chunk. It's used extensively by mullet fishermen across the southeast, or not across the southeast, but in southern Alabama and northern Florida, in the area where I fish. The fish see it a lot. I'm actually going to go get some. So this is Chum and Get It. This used to be a dog food. It's no longer used as a dog food anymore. It was literally the worst dog food that's ever been made. It's now made exclusively as a fish attractant. It is not a fish food like, say, trout chow, or just in the US we call it chow, or regular catfish food that you would buy at the co-op. It is purely an attractant. It's used extensively by mullet fishermen down here. So the fish are used to seeing it, at least in the area where I fish, where we have a lot of freshwater mullet fishermen, instead of them going down to the bay. Now I use that to soak up all of the leftover juices left in this, and then I mix in ice cream salt to the point where it no longer takes any more of it. That way it doesn't melt my EVA. And I can use that mix as a stick mix. The salt also is a great attractant, so if I add some of the stick mix into my particle and boiling mix, it helps to glaze everything over and give an extra bit of attractant. So this water is not quite boiling, but it's good and hot. This is going to be soaking for 24 hours. It doesn't need to be boiling. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the pot off and add it into my pot. Alright, I've got the corn in here. You can see the cooler's dirty, the water's not perfectly clean, but it's good and hot. And this is going to help to plump this corn up so that tomorrow when I go to boil it and get it ready to fish with, it is going to be perfectly, or it's going to be even more puffed up. So I'm going to get the lid on it so the heat can stop getting out and it can go to work. That's that. I'll be back tomorrow to finish this process off. So, it's been 24 hours, still nasty and rainy, but the temperature's dropped a fair bit. Doesn't look like I'm going to get to fish for a while, but we're cooking corn instead of fishing for a reason. So I'm going to get it back in this pot, let it get it up to a boil. Tell the rain's picking up, corn's on the boil, water's up and boiling now. I'm gonna come back in about 30 minutes and I'm probably gonna pull out some hook baits at that point. And then I'm gonna let the rest go till it's really, really well boiled and soft and starting to split, pop some of the kernels. And that's pretty much it. At this point it's just a sit and wait, stir it around. Like I said, if you don't have one of these pots, you can do this on the stove in the kitchen. It doesn't really smell, it smells like corn. If you wanted to do a large amount like this, one thing you could do whenever you're soaking your corn is to come back about every 3 to 4 hours and top it back off with boiling water, pour off the old water, pour in the boiling water. And over the course of about 12 to 16 hours, your corn will be completely soft and it'll be fine to use for bait. It's never going to get as soft as doing this, but I would only do that if you're planning a big trip where you're going to need a lot of maize for that trip, if you're having to do it in that manner. If you're just going to boil enough to fish for a day, you can get by with a decent sized pot. But this is going to go for a little while. Take some action, turn the heat down, it's boiling a little too strong. Alright, the corn's boiling good. I've pulled a couple kernels out so I can show you what it's looking like. This is the point where I would take it off to use as hook baits. But I'm going to let it keep going for another 15 to 20 minutes so that it fully pops most of the kernels. So this is the dry corn at this point. It's just dried corn. You can't pop it. If fish eats that, it's not going to be good for them. This right here is the soaked corn. It's good and soft. You can pop it with your fingernail. It's not quite where you want it if you're going to be fishing with it. You could use this as a hook bait if you want, but it's still pretty dry in there. It's not really what you want for the fish. Now this is corn that's been boiled for about 45 minutes. It's good and soft. It's much bigger than the dried corn and even bigger than the soaked corn. And you can see how soft it is. It's fully hydrated through there. This is what I'm going to pull aside to be hook baits. So, this is what the corn's going to look like when it's finished. A few kernels are starting to pop. This is where you want it whenever you're feeding it out. Now, one trick you can do to make this step happen faster is you can put in a full bottle of the cheap $1 Baker's Vanilla. I don't know what it is, but it's something about it makes the corn swell better and makes it pop faster. I don't want that necessarily because I am going to use some of this as a hook bait, and if I were to cook hemp in this water, it can slow the hemp popping. There's something about American hemp where it's been irradiated or steamed or whatever it is they do to it that makes it no longer viable to sprout, causes it to not split as easily. So that's something to remember. If you're going to be doing hemp in this like I do, you don't want to add anything to it. Now I'm not going to do hemp this time because I have plenty saved up in the fridge and the audio quality is terrible out here right now, but I have nothing to do, so I'm going to make a video. So I'm going to come back in about 20 minutes and check it. It should be to the point where I'm going to save it aside. Now when I save it aside, you'll see I'm going to put it back into the cooler for at least 6 hours, and that's going to help it continue that cooking process without me having to stand over it and worry about it. So I will be back in a little bit to see where it's at from there. corn's done, it's done cooled all the way back down where you can run your hand through it, it's not gonna hurt. Still a little bit warm. I'm fixing to put it in gallon sacks because that's how I like to store it. Then I'm gonna stick it in the old beer fridge and it'll be good to go. It's not gonna make anything in there spoil because it's cooled down enough that it's not gonna hurt anything. If you put this in bags and put it in the fridge while it's hot, not only do you risk ripping your bags a lot more with the hot corn in there, you can burn whatever is in your fridge. That's a lot of heat and a lot of mass going into the fridge. So you want to make sure it's cooled down if you're going to store it in the fridge like that. Most of this now is fully popped, like you can see on that one. These that haven't, that one started to, are just completely soft. You can just mash them with your fingers. So this is good to go and ready to use for bait. So I didn't save any hook baits out this time. I found some in the fridge that are still good and need to be used, so I'm going to use those up first. But all this bait here is ready to go. So if you like this, do YouTube things at the end, like it, subscribe, whatever. So I'm gonna get this bagged up and get it in the fridge.